From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. Electricity is returning to Venezuela and things are going back to normal in the Latin American country. The Venezuelan government denounced cybernetic sabotage on the national electricity grid. Queues are forming at service stations as gas became available again from 1 in the afternoon. The government explained that the incident forms part of the imperial war against the country. The attack occurred on Thursday at the Guari Dam in Bolívar State. It left several regions without electricity, including the capital, Caracas. Experts have been working to get power back as soon as possible. Meanwhile, the Venezuelan authorities suspended the workday and education services. The Venezuelan Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino Lopez has been traveling around the city of Caracas to accompany citizens in the current situation. He noted their civic behavior and patience as they wait for things to return to normal.
It's March 8th, and we're taking a trip around the streets of Caracas, visiting and looking at the way the people are dealing with the situation and their civic attitude in the wake of a criminal action that knocked out the national electricity grid. It's been a few hours without electricity now, and I'd like to congratulate all the workers of the electric company Corpo Elec and the electricity ministry. My brothers, we're going to win. The people are going to win. We're sending a message of peace to the Venezuelan people and saying that all across national territory, everything is calm and things are being resolved.
Last night, Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez singled out United States Senator Marco Rubio following the attack.
Queremos también señalar y destacar.
We want to send a message to the international community. Only 3 minutes after the attack happened, Mr. Marco Rubio went out and spoke to the media as if he was reporting the crime that has been developing in our country. This reminds us of what happened a couple of days ago when a deputy from the opposition party of the self-proclaimed held an event in Cucuta, where his assistant died. Immediately, Mr. Marco Rubio went out to the media and constitutional government of Venezuela. Hours later, the people of Venezuela and the world found out the truth. The truth was that this deputy was having fun in a brothel and he got drugged and mugged, and that's why he died. Well, Mr. Rubio, I want to tell you that in a few hours, the people of Venezuela and the international community will find out the truth. Your hands and that of your puppets are behind this attack, and you keep trying to frame the people of Venezuela.
For an update from the ground, we go to our correspondent Luis Tavera in Caracas.
Right now, we're in Venezuela Square, a well-traversed place for locals, and as you can see, people are still making their way to work, and others are heading to university. Despite the fact that the government said that today won't be a working day, which is also the case for educational institutions. This is due to the Venezuelan government's denunciation of sabotage to electricity provision, which has caused delays. However, yesterday the government announced that electricity had returned, but only in the east of the country. Minister of Communication Jorge Rodriguez provided an assessment of what happened, and the events have been denounced by the government. Venezuelans are waiting for electricity to be returned in the next few hours in parts of the country, following a cybernetic attack, which has been denounced by the government. We'll be here attentive to any new information that emerges, so we can keep you up to date.
We thank Luis for that report. Social movements in St. Vincent and the Grenadines have condemned what they call the immoral sanctions against Venezuela. The organizations, including the National Council of Women, the Unity Youth, and the Windward Island Farmers Association, signed a declaration of solidarity. It also condemned the theft of Venezuelan assets and the Trump administration's threat of military intervention.
But for a person like me who visited Venezuela, been on the grounds, and I would have seen what is really happening against what you're hearing from CNN and all the other medias in the USA. It is just wicked. We need to know the the truth. So what we're doing here, we are trying to educate the people of what really is, and not the propagandas and lies they're listening to.
A former CARICOM ambassador says the United States is causing great chaos and instability in Venezuela. Diplomat Earl Huntley says Washington's history of undermining democracy in Venezuela can be traced back to former President George W. Bush. Our correspondent in St. Lucia, Alison Kentish, has more.
Earl Huntley represented the 15 countries of the Caribbean community CARICOM in Haiti. The former United Nations ambassador and foreign affairs expert in St. Lucia weighed in on U.S. interference in Venezuela at a special academic discourse. He told the gathering that the U.S. wants to control Venezuelan oil and other minerals, and this was evident during the term of former President George Bush. He said this mission continued with Barack Obama and his March 2015 declaration of Venezuela as a threat to national security.
I remember when I heard the announcement, I was taken aback because at the same time they were making overtures to Cuba. And he announced sanctions against Venezuelan officials for alleged human rights violations and corruption. President Donald Trump has squeezed Venezuela's Maduro's even further. In addition to targeted sanctions against individuals and companies, President Trump has imposed broader economic sanctions on Venezuela.
Ambassador Huntley says the U.S. has imposed crippling sanctions on Venezuela and, in a strange twist, is now offering aid.
It is ironic that the country that has imposed that level of economic sanctions on Venezuela, it's estimated probably about $30 billion worth of sanctions, is now giving humanitarian aid to the same country that it has been squeezing. In fact, the value of the sanctions is much more than the value of the aid that is being sent to Venezuela.
Huntley told Telesur on the sidelines of the event that it is important to objectively discuss the U.S. role in the crisis.
I focus a lot on the role of the United States as what I call one of the contributors to the crisis in terms of their trying to bring down the Chavista revolution in Venezuela from the time of President Chavez to now, so that they have contributed to the crisis in Venezuela.
The foreign affairs analyst says a report from UN Rapporteur Alfred Desires concluded that U.S. sanctions on the country are illegal and could amount to crimes against humanity under international law, but that report is being kept quiet. He says Venezuela is being made to pay for its desire to be independent of the United States, in keeping with Simon Bolivar's ideas of a united continent. Alison Kentish, Telesur, St. Lucia.
At least 25 Central American migrants have died when a truck crashed in the Mexican state of Chiapas. Another 29 people were wounded. The truck reportedly overturned as it was traveling. The incident is under investigation and the victims are being identified. The newly appointed Attorney General in Peru, Zoraida Ábalos, has announced an investigation into illegal mining and human trafficking.
We have started the implementation of a satellite office of specialists in Madre de Dios with 8 investigators to streamline the investigations of illegal mining, environmental crimes, human trafficking, among others.
Jamaica's government is stepping up its efforts to help the poverty reduction program. On his Twitter account, Prime Minister Andrew Holness announced that the allocation of funds will increase from $349 million to $558 million in the upcoming financial year. It will be the 4th phase of the program to reduce poverty. We'll be back in a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back. The National Union of Women in Venezuela have marked International Women's Day by holding a conference to celebrate the achievements of women. The late Hugo Chavez promoted gender equality as part of the Bolivarian Revolution. More in this report.
Working-class Venezuelans are celebrating how far women have come and the role they have played historically as society has evolved.
During the Fourth Republic, I lived without any constitution, so I could not have access to a better life. But now, in this historical moment, I am consular. I am a normal woman who got this position because of an election. We were awarded great importance in the revolution. Hugo Chavez truly cared about us, women.
During the meeting, women said they are in favor of defending their country and reject any intervention in the wake of the political situation.
Women have been essential in the revolution, and if we have to, we will give our lives in the name of it.
Gender equality was set out in the National Plan of 2013 to 2019.
We have to take into account the social, human and political aspects, also gender diversity. Gender diversity is part of a society which is deeply transformed. And that was one of the first things that Chavez taught us, the construction of a new man and woman.
The National Union of Women is based on the ideas of building a better, fair and equal society. Its goal is to set an international example when it comes to the achievement of women.
Local businesses in Mexico have joined a Safe Place initiative to offer vulnerable women any help they may need. Restaurants and gyms have opened up their spaces for women who can access a phone line service to call the police. They also provide food and drinks.
A girl living to tell her story depends on whether someone intervened. So making a stand and not just witnessing something is what can make all the difference as to whether the girl survives or not.
The Bolivian President Evo Morales has congratulated Bolivian women on International Women's Day. Via social media, Morales highlighted the progress women made within politics, adding that they are the core of Bolivian society. He also stressed that Bolivia will keep fighting for achieving equality in the country. Argentine women have been some of the most visible demonstrators in the world when it comes to fighting for women's rights. To talk more on what drives Argentinians to mass protests, we are now joined live from Buenos Aires by Ximena Schinca. Hello, Ximena. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, thank you. Sorry.
How were this strike and mobilization organized?
Well, it is important to know that in Argentina, this demonstration was organized through popular assemblies and convened by the movement of women and dissidencies, that is LGBTQ collective. So different social movements, organizations, political parties, and independents discussed during several weeks which are going to be the meaning of this feminist international strike of women, lesbians, trans, and dissidencies in the country and in the region as well.
Now, Ximena, what are the demands present at the march and the mobilization?
Well, this year is very important to recognize that we strike against the economic adjustment program led by the neoliberal and conservative governments in Argentina by President Mauricio Macri, but also in Latin America and the rest of the world. In Argentina, President Mauricio Macri and the adjusted governors with their capitalist and neoliberal violence tried to rob women and dissidencies of work, bread, health, and education, and it's going to be very present today during the demonstration that demand against this government and in the regions against government like Bolsonaro's and as well as Trump's in the United States of America.
Now, this is the third international strike in Argentina and Latin America. Who is it targeted against?
Well, during these assemblies in Argentina, it was very clear that the Latin American feminist movement and women movement has the opportunity to stop the advance of the fascist and neoliberal right in the region and demand policies of care and protections again for women and the vulnerable sectors. It means that when we are talking about adjustment in economy, the main vulnerable sectors are women and dissidencies. So we think that this is an opportunity for this movement that has been growing during the last 3 years in Argentina and the rest of the region to stop this advance in the war.
Now, what kind of progress has been made so far in the women's struggle, and what are the main challenges still ahead?
Well, you mentioned at the beginning of this interview, the main achievement was to make visible the existence of structural violence against women and dissident sectors in the region. In Argentina, we are talking about a woman who is killed every 32 hours. And the budget assigned to protect women in the country is increasingly significant. Today, a bus ticket is more expensive than the budget assigned to protect a woman in the year in the country. The right of abortion remains a pending issue in Argentina and in most of the region in Latin America, while the fascist and right-wing ideology advances in governments such as Trump and Bolsonaro are making budgets increasingly meaningless for protecting these inhabitants in the country, in the region.
Now, Ximena, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you.
Moving on. Earlier, we spoke with Caribbean feminist Dr. Gabrielle Hussein, who's the head of the Institute for Gender and Development Studies at the UWI campus in Trinidad and Tobago. She spoke to us about the struggle for gender equality in the region.
Predominantly, we are still challenging issues that have come out of the colonial plantation economy. That is violence as a mode of governance, violence including sexual violence against women, pay inequality and the sexual division of labor, a lack of control over our reproduction and our fertility, and therefore issues of reproductive justice, and of course issues around racism, classism, and the control of women's sexuality as old ways of governing women's bodies that have been the roots of Caribbean feminism in the Americas.
She also told us about feminist movements in the Caribbean and what women are doing to gain gender equality.
Caribbean feminism, particularly in the Anglophone Caribbean, is very active today. Caribbean feminists are working on issues of maternal mortality, for example, in Jamaica, have been very active on issues of sexual harassment, for example, in Barbados, and have been very active on issues around everything from LGBTI issues and, a space for women's sexuality, as well as reproductive rights, pay equality, child sexual abuse and incest as just some of the core issues. And of course, the entire region remains committed to the work on ending male violence against women and violence in families and communities.
More news in a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back. To learn more about the importance of Women's Day, we spoke with Beatrice Sabadai, Director and founder of Roots Africa, a non-governmental organization focused on women and children's rights, about the challenges women face in Africa.
Women in Africa are facing challenges that every other woman is facing all over the world. There are a lot of challenges that include the shrinking civic space, a space where women can openly engage and talk about the issues that affect them. There is increasing shrinking of space where women can participate in decision-making spaces, like getting into politics. There are a lot of sexual and reproductive health issues that women are grappling with, issues of maternal health, HIV. So it's issues that every other woman is facing, issues of gender-based violence, sexual violence. Our organization, Roots Africa, focuses on promoting gender equality. Some of the work that we've done is to address issues of child marriage, which is sexual violence of girls who are under the age of 18 in my country. And to that end, we have managed to take our government to the Constitutional Court to have our marriage laws we were challenging our marriage laws because they were allowing girls to be married before they reach the age of 18. So we managed to do that constitutional court. In 2016, we got the constitutional court to declare that child marriages are illegal in Zimbabwe. So that's some of the work that we've been doing at policy level. We have also been working with traditional and religious leaders who are custodians of culture, because some of these practices are very much driven by social norms. So within our communities, traditional leaders and religious leaders play a very crucial role in terms of promoting gender equality.
Former United States intelligence analyst Chelsea Manning has been jailed for refusing to testify at an investigation into WikiLeaks. A Virginia judge ordered that she be taken into custody until the investigation is finished or she decides to testify. Manning says she shared everything she knows at her court-martial. She was arrested in Iraq in 2019 for passing over 700,000 confidential documents, videos, and diplomatic cables to WikiLeaks. Julian Assange and his WikiLeaks organization has been under investigation for the U.S. for years.
Contempt hearing, it's a sealed hearing.
Staying in the U.S., President Donald Trump's former campaign chairman has been sentenced to 47 months in prison. Paul Manafort was found guilty last August of tax fraud, bank fraud, and failing to disclose foreign bank accounts. The crimes were undercover during Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into Russia's alleged role in the 2016 election. Manafort faces sentencing in a separate case next Wednesday on 2 conspiracy charges. And now let's take a look at some other stories from around the world.
Finnish Prime Minister Juha Sipilä has resigned after failing to push controversial health reforms through Parliament. Sipilä has called the failure a major disappointment, as he was unable to pass the reforms before legislative elections scheduled for April 14th. The president has approved the resignation and asked the cabinet to stay on as a caretaker government. A Somali woman turned supermodel in London, Waris Duri, has dedicated her time to speaking out against female genital mutilation. After undergoing the procedure, her sister bled to death, and Duri believes that more needs to be done to save children from crimes committed against them across the world.
Good news, which is from very high number, 70%, to 7% to today. So that is a good achievement and a positive move. And but we have to end this problem, and this is the way to do it is for 2 things. And this thing is the world to take over, the world to do something about it, because it's really a terrible abuse against children and a crime. And I can't repeat enough, and I can't say enough, and I just want the world to seriously recognize this and to do something about it, because enough is enough. Yeah? One person cannot change the world. We do it together.
Health officials in Thailand have announced the country is set to start its first tests of cannabis oil on patients. The move is exciting entrepreneurs who believe that the new industry could be a profitable opportunity, whilst offering relief to suffering patients. Thailand is the first country in Southeast Asia to embrace medical marijuana, but recreational use remains illegal.
Mass protests in Algeria continue against President Abdelaziz Bouteflika. The demonstrations, which have entered the 3rd week, were triggered by the president's decision to seek re-election for a 5th term. He has ruled for 20 years. Bouteflika has warned protesters that the unrest, the biggest since the 2011 Arab Spring, could destabilize the country. He remains hospitalized in Geneva. The Gabonese presidential spokesperson has dismissed rumors President Ali Bongo has a look-alike. The spokesperson says a body double has not been standing in for the 60-year-old president since he suffered a stroke in October. Bongo has returned to Gabon only twice since falling ill, staying less than 48 hours each time. There has been no word on when he will return home definitely. And with this story, we come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories in our website at telesurenglish.net. And don't forget to follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. Thank you for watching.